The Rebel Capitalist Show.
I had the opportunity to hang out with Gerald Celente this week, or last week, excuse me. Max Kaiser was here in Phoenix doing like a Bitcoin meetup thing. And I don't know why Gerald was there, but he was there. And I've interviewed him a couple of times. And so we had a long conversation about what's been happening here. And we were talking about things that we could do to push back and stand up for liberty and freedom. And he asked me if I knew the story of how the Berlin Wall came down. And I said, a little bit, but yeah, just go. I'd love to hear it from your standpoint. And he said, well, basically what happened is a bunch of people went out to the wall because they had had enough and they wouldn't leave. And they said, shoot me, I don't care. I've had enough. And all the other people saw that, so they start leaving their homes. And then, before you know it, you've got thousands of people per every one soldier with a gun. And the soldiers look around and say, you know what, if we shoot one person here, we are done. And they said, we got to put our guns down. And the wall came down. And he said, that's what we have to do. That's the way you win this, figuratively speaking, this war, is people have to stand up as a group and say that we're not going to take it anymore. And whether that's, patronizing one restaurant over the other one, maybe it's standing up and just, peacefully protesting. That's what we have to do to push back, because if we don't, we see the direction that this is going, and to your point, going very, very quickly. People that say that I'm, worried about this or overly worried about this, I always point to 2019. And if I said, listen, if I would have told you in 2019 that the government would lock you in a cage, that they'd force you to shut down your business, that they wouldn't allow you to go to the beach, you'd have told me that I was absolutely insane. But sure enough, 3 months later, here we are, right? And so if we got to this point that fast, just think how fat or where we could be in a year from now if we don't stand up for freedom.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it starts with everybody as an individual first. And if you're not even willing to take the most basic things and go, you know what, I'm gonna do something else with my money. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. Or if you're not even willing to do that, in many respects, you have no right to even complain.
Yeah. If you, and this is the pushback that I get on Twitter and social media so much when I talk about these things, but I'd like to hear it from your standpoint, again, because you're such a student of history and looking at this through the lens of history. If you had to give a quick elevator pitch to someone on why freedom is more important than security, or why it should be prioritized over security, what would you tell them?
I think if you go back and you look at the history of empire, literally across all of human history, going back to, you can go back to the ancient Sumeria, and you look at the fall of empire, there are only a handful of reasons for it. Very, very few reasons for it. Occasionally you'll find an instant disaster, whatever, major earthquake or something like that. But for the most part, what we find is that major civilizations, great powers tend to fall because of an erosion of freedom. It's not because of security. It's not because of any of these other things. It's because of an erosion of freedom, because they make it more difficult for people to live their lives. They make it more difficult for people to be productive. They make it more difficult for people to save. It's economic freedom. It's individual liberty, all these things. This is ultimately what causes the decline of empire. We can see this over and over and over again. Again, it's not always the case. Sometimes you've got, what I call single person empires, the Mongolians under Genghis, the Macedonians under Alexander, et cetera. You've got the one leader that dies, and within a generation or two, it's kaput. But for the most part, and we can see this, the French, the Ottomans, the Romans, there's so many examples of this, that the great powers fall because of an erosion of freedom. And so be careful what you ask for. That's the lesson. That is one of the most fundamental lessons of history. Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, there you go.